Yeah, so actually, first, I just want to say thanks, Alex, for being on here, for taking the time, because uh, I'm really grateful that we get to have this conversation. I don't take it for granted. I'm actually going to be rewatching this myself and writing down some of you said several quotes that I think are worth writing down and being on a t shirt. I'm not going to make the t shirts, but I will write it down and remember it.
The future of music.
The future of music. The future of music.
The future of music.
The future of music.
The Future of Music podcast.
Howdy do to you today. This is the Future of Music podcast. It's great to have everybody here. You know what we're all about. My goodness. We're all here to show you how to survive and thrive in the future of music. And by we're all, I mean right now, two of us. That's all of us. Me being Ryan Withrow, one of your hosts. And the other is my esteemed colleague and partner in crime, Jonathan Boyd. And
Very
Jonathan, you are you're looking as beautiful as ever, all right, and you're looking. That beard is making me jealous, and it's okay. You know, mine was better back in the day. I inspired you, and that's where we're at. So you can admit it sometime, and it'll be okay. But man, I can't tell you how stoked I am for today. I mean, like, this is a joy. This is like, you know, when I was little me, like 13 years old, 14 years old, like the dream about what we're about to do here is just, it's coming together. And I'm really excited, but that's me. I know what's coming. They probably have no idea. So what should they be excited about on the future of podcasting, the future of music podcast today? What should they be pumped for?
Yeah, it's a super special day today because it's kind of like meeting one of your all-time sports heroes, except this is the sport of music, I guess. So we're going to be talking to a legend, an absolute legend in the rock and metal space. He's been playing for over 37 years, actually touring, getting out there, getting on the road, getting dirty, probably all the other stuff, getting clean too when he takes showers every now and then, all the stuff. But we're going to be talking about, we want to dive into everything. So how the heck did he get there? What was it like doing all of that touring and being on the road and recording, and who did he meet and what was it like playing? What was it like dealing with the band members? We're going to get all the nitty gritty details. Really excited to talk about that. And also, more importantly, I think in the spirit of the future and music, we are, of course, going to dive into what the heck is he going to do now? Since he's had a great, long, amazing career and things are changing so fast in the musical landscape, it's turning everybody upside down. So we're going to be talking about what's his plan? How is he going to navigate this new musical landscape that is literally shifting and changing right before our eyes?
Beautifully done. Beautifully done, my friend. And even more beautiful is those of you who subscribe. So make sure that you subscribe and click the alerts, and you make sure that you follow us on the podcast platforms. We see a lot of y'all. So thank you for the support, and let's continue it. Let's continue doing this so that we can bring amazing people like we are today all the time. Today, my friends, my goodness gracious, Alex Holzwarth, man. First of all, for those of you that don't know Alex, you should. So, you know, that's lesson number 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But I first heard of you and what you do way back when with Rhapsody. I remember being like, I think I was 15 at the time, maybe 16. I had just started my journey with guitar, and I had this one guitar teacher that was just weird. But his name was Joel. And he was like a certified Class A diver, but he also walked around with like a 3XL shirt, even though he weighed like 110 pounds. Mm-hmm. And he had like the pack of cigarettes in the Hanes t-shirt pocket, you know. But I remember showing up for lessons and him being like, "Come on down to the dungeon." And I was like, "Dungeon? What are you talking about?" So I went downstairs to his lesson room, and he had transformed the whole basement into a dungeon, and it had candelabras. And I remember learning so much from him, theory, everything. But one of the big things that he showed me to get into music theory was Rhapsody, honestly. And I remember, of course, as anybody that gets into the journey of Rhapsody, typically it's like one of 3 pathways. Holy Thunder Force was, of course, like the first introduction. And I was like, man, this is amazing. So I just went on this binge for years, man, of just digging into that kind of epic power metal stuff. And that's how I started really finding you and everybody else. But, you know, Rhapsody's just one part of the equation, man. been playing since like the 80s with Sieges Even and Avantasia. Blind Guardian, you've done work with. Camelot, you've done work with. Angra. I mean, these are all like massive titans in prog, rock, metal, and it makes you, by classification, a legend as well. I'm sorry, you have to deal with that. So you'll be dealing with that. But outside of that, I've had the honor and blessing in life of being able to call you a friend. I know that just a few weeks ago, I flew all the way out to Vegas to go see you, and look at how unique and cool we are. I could put this right on up. You welcomed my wife and I. Yeah, you welcomed my wife and I to enjoy, and it was an incredible time. I had a blast. She had a blast, and that was with you touring with Tarja. So first of all, welcome, my friend, to the show. It's an honor to have you here, but let's kind of start there. What have you been up to? I know that I just saw you on this tour with Tarja, and you've been doing some festivals. So what's been up in your life lately, man?
First of all, thanks for having me, and it's always great to chat with you guys, and thanks a lot. And if those guys are legends, I'm maybe a legend too. Those other bands you mentioned,
you can admit it.
They're like just normal humans like everyone else. So
sure.
All right. So what I'm up to now, actually, I just finished those festivals now with Tarja. And now I can get back to work with my lessons, and other stuff coming up in the future for some online stuff. And let's see what the future brings. I don't have so much tours coming up already confirmed, but I know there are some things in the works, and also studio stuff. So it's always, interesting, also for the past stuff I did, like a new record coming out with some other people. I have to do a video and all that kind of stuff, So, yeah, that's it. Always the same, actually. Boring.
No, you're not keeping busy at all, is what you're telling me. It's just like you sit down on the recliner all day, and that's it. Nothing to do, nothing to worry about.
The pool in the afternoon.
Yes. There's nothing. That would be nice. Yeah.
It'd be nice for all.
That's not what life is all about, actually. But
yeah. And that's interesting. And I think we'll probably get into some of this stuff too. Some of my favorite conversations with you have really been, of course, focused on music, but even further have been focused on really like philosophy and using music through that process. And a lot of that comes out in your playing and your teaching, but also you as an individual. So I'm excited to dive in. But before we kind of jump into the crazy existential, fun, philosophical stuff, we need to know about where you were. My goodness, you've come from that massive line of incredible groups and playing. And the question that I always start with when I have somebody like yourself here is, like, how did that happen? Like, take me back to like young Alex being like, I think drums are neat, and work through like that initial part of your life and your career. I'd love to hear it.
Okay, let's try to make it long story short. I mean, in the end, everything was happened by accident. I watched a recent interview, or not a recent, but I watched the Lemmy interview recently, and he was talking about that actually, and that was, I thought to myself, that's just 100% true, everything what's important in your life, that's what he said, happened by accident. And if I think about, and everyone, maybe it's kind of true or 100% true or whatever. And for me, this fits very well. And that's kind of a good description of all my career. Even though the word is like, my life actually, because if you play for so many years, you have to play on some records. I mean, that's just it, So when I started, it was like my brother, Oliver. He played bass, or he wanted to start bass. We were around 10, 11, something like this. And I wanted to do the same, actually, as a younger brother. And then he said, like, you cannot play the same instrument, what happens if you want to play in a band, which we did later on, like in rhythm sections and stuff. And we played together in the Rhapsody of Fire, in Blind Guardian, and Sieges Even. So this is like 3 bands playing as a rhythm section. He played in Tarja like almost 10 years ago as a bass player. Now I'm in Tarja also playing drums. So it's like, this connection. And what I did is I chose drums, and I was fascinated when I watched drums, when we went, we were living in Frankfurt at that time, when there were a lot of festivals on the streets. And whenever there was a drummer and he played, the pedal, I was like a little boy watching this pedal, and I was fascinated also by the hi-hat. And I don't know, there was something like, it's just you hit something, and it's just true, it was just awesome. And that's what happened. It was actually an accident, and I think it was a good decision. I don't know about all the other decisions who could have been made.
Sure.
Maybe I would be super famous guitar player. Maybe maybe not.
Yeah.
Nobody can tell you.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So that was the beginning, and then, long story short, we made our own band, like a school band, friends, like Sieges Even. We wanted to invent the music, kind of everything was there already, in our eyes, and we wanted just to do something fresh, and everything. I don't know. So I think every band back then had this vision. There were not so many passes, gone like today. It's completely different. And back then it was like a new band could have been the new Metallica. It could have been the new Iron Maiden, which was a complete new direction for us back then, And even Kiss in the 70s, come on. And all those bands, Motorhead. So that's what we did, like everyone. And we were like in that kind of progressive techno trash was the name of that band back then. Like
nice
combinations like of Watchtower, Anthrax, I don't know, all this Metallica and all those bands.
Yeah.
And going into, we tried it. And I went out of school actually, and we had the first record deal. So I was like, yeah, this is it. I do not need to work in my life. That's awesome. I can just play drums. And that did not happen actually. So
How old were you at that point?
it was like, I was about 20 or 19 years old.
Okay.
So, but we took it very seriously and rehearsed every hour we could. And so we had Sieges Even for a long time. And then the other bands came in, just through the Sieges Even connection, actually. Bauerfeind and Charlie produced the second Sieges Even record in 90. That was the record Steps. The first record was 88, Life Cycle, was kind of techno trash. The second one was already more like into Rush music kind of things. And our new, fantastic new visions came up. What we wanted to reach, we tried. I'm not saying that we did, but it was quite kind of interesting stuff. And Charlie Bauerfeind was working in a studio, just came from Berkeley. He studied there, started with drums actually, and then he saw that there were so many good other drummers and blah, blah, blah. So he made this audio thing, which is, I think, was a good decision, also by accident, maybe. I don't know, have to ask him. And so then that connection was actually the connection to Angra later on and Rhapsody. So
nice.
That was the thing. And, I could continue now for hours, but that was like, being at the same, at the right time, at the right place, or how to say, that was always like, but it was not an easy way for me, There were some years where it was really hard. I had to do jobs around my music, stuff. So it
Yeah.
was now after all those years, it looks like, look, it was so easy for you. I often hear this, even from my drum tech, my dear friend Michele. And I'm always explaining to him, like, come on, it's not this, it's never easy. It's
Yeah.
different, but it's never easy.
Yeah, yeah. Now I know, John, you probably got some questions, but I think one that stands out to me that I'm just interested in is as you're doing this stuff, and like when I talk to people now, of course I have guitar playing friends and drum playing friends, and I was just at a Dream Theater show, and we always have a nerdy meetup because I'm part of that fan group of nerds, which I love being a part of that fan group of nerds. There you go, and. Yeah, we all were talking, and one of the guys that I know really well, plays guitar really well, was just talking about, man, I've been back on an Angra kick. I really just love their stuff. And did you realize when you guys were doing the work, even Sieges Even, it's same thing. I'll talk to people all the time. They're like, man, that was just such a pivotal change for me in prog and in rock and in instruments. As you guys are doing this way back then and thinking of these ideas and recording, was it ever like we've got something here, like it's going to be in X amount of decades, like it's still talked about? Or was it just a normal feeling? Or did you know something was there?
It's funny. I mean, I can't tell you because we took it very seriously, and for us it was, music is something holy, or another word for holy. Something really magical, or it's about the truth. It's about everything in my life actually, and I think it was the same for all the other guys in the band. And so what we made was, I always describe this like making a movie, and. I can tell you, man, that was really something. For me, it was the best thing you could do, but not because I made it. It was just we created something, and that's, I think, the most important thing. And no matter what's the ranking about it, it's really something everyone can do it. That's what I tell to my students all the time. It's like if you hit a note, that's already can be everything, and you have others reacting to the note, or, and in this room now, even people who don't play sitting there, that can be very important, that kind of thing. So I can't tell you actually. I can't tell you.
Yeah.
We thought it's great. When I listen to it now, it's I think it's something special in the sense of interesting, absolutely. But I don't know. Even the sound, when I hear it, I see the snare drum I had back then, and all the cymbals and all the work. I put all my money into it. My parents gave me in a week. Taschengeld, we say in German. So of course, for me, it was super, super important, and we wanted to be, I don't know what we wanted actually, but we wanted to reach something. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think you have, for sure, 100%.
But too late. But too late. I have to really. We have some re-releases now. So if you're interested, some new records coming out now, even as vinyl. But for me, it's too late now. The people get me reviews, and it's great. But I've seen them, the reviews back then, and it's. I focus on the future. Sieges Even was great when I was young, and everybody believed in it. And now it's just, it's a past.
So, yeah. Well, it's a good past. So go ahead, John.
Yeah. So before we fast forward a little bit, I want to dive a little bit deeper into some of the struggles that you talked about. So you mentioned having different jobs, but you also mentioned this idea that you guys came together and you kind of had this vision, even if you didn't have a crystal clear vision of what it was, right? Of what you're trying to do. You had a feeling about it. So can you talk a little bit about in the times that were super tough, and maybe you even remember one or two of them in particular, maybe a time where, you really realized that I have to stop what I'm doing, go get a job, make some money, do something else. What was going through your head when things got really, really tough, and what was it that kept you going?
That's funny. of course, I went through all of that. I mean, the worst is when you have a young family. Actually, you start very young, and you have to get some money at least, and so I had always to had a job next to all that stuff, and to the music work, and that was the kind of tough thing. But the moment you mentioned when my wife asked me, don't you think it would be better to find something different? And I was really destroyed. And I was like, for me, it was the world was ending, when that I imagined this happening. But it did not happen, actually. And I don't remember exactly when that time was, but I think there was a job, something else coming in with like a studio job. I'm not sure if this was Angra or maybe Luca calling me. No, that was later actually. But there was something positive happening. And so, yeah, I think I could be happy without music, but maybe not the same. I would not have the same life quality. That's for sure. I don't think it's possible actually to live without music. Actually, it's not possible. Music's
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, I could tell you started smiling, instantly. So your body
Yeah.
language tells me. Yeah.
I hope I answered your question. Was it?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that we could all relate, even people listening as well, right? I think we've all been in that position, even if it's not, music related, where we've all had like that existential moment where we're like, oh my gosh. I mean, I've talked about it on the podcast before where I invested in school and the college for music. And when I got out and realized I couldn't pay the bills, I had that moment of, oh no.
Yeah.
Like I've never imagined this life of putting on a suit and a tie and like going to a corporate job and giving up this thing. And it was devastating for sure, but it was necessary, right? And now that I'm married and I have somebody that depends on me, like you get it, you understand, like you'll do what it takes, and you'll still have time to pursue the other stuff, but it does take priority for sure. So good, well said.
I think
So go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's not about I have a lot of students, and we're talking about that stuff. They wanted to be like the rock star thing and just do music, like getting famous with 20 years, like Guns N' Roses or all those bands, Motley Crue, even Metallica, and they were really young. But I don't think this is really the best, or there's no ranking again. It's like doing music can be is really healing, and it's great for everyone, and it doesn't really matter if you have a job beside your music, your bands, or you just have to be happy. It's all about happiness. And so yeah, sorry.
Well said.
Interrupt.
No, well said.
Yeah, so let's fast forward a little bit to today. So we've heard a little bit about how you got where you are, and we kind of have a little bit of a glimpse into the ups and downs, right? The vicissitudes of maybe sometimes are super fun, maybe like those times where you're playing for more people than you ever played before. That's a high, and then obviously there are those times where you're like, oh man, I really got to figure out how to pay the bills. We go through those stages, and now fast forward through many years. I mean, we can say that you're very well established, in the industry and in the space. So can you tell us a little bit about what does, not even a day to day, but maybe week to week, month to month, what is your quote daily life? What does that look like? What do you actually are doing? What are you thinking about? What are you looking for?
So my daily life is quite boring, I would say. I mean, I have
Perfect.
no, yeah. I mean, come on. As you get older, you have actually right now at that moment, I have really to focus on having more space a little bit, in a weekend, and doing nothing, and just getting the batteries loaded again. But I love my job actually, as a drum teacher, and talking about music. It's not just about, as drum lessons. It's about everything, life philosophy. I have students, we talk all the time, all lesson. And I love my job. So for me, I'm happy to be there, even when it's long, could be more, short sometimes the days, but I love it. And about the other stuff like studio jobs, I say I give to somebody else because it's too much for me to switch, from the lesson thing, which I really focus on, to do studio recordings here in my cellar, So I'm actually very happy at the moment. And also when you have tours, for example, Tarja is touring like 2 weeks, 3 weeks maximum. And that's great for me. So I can do the lessons afterwards. I'm back, in the holiday season. And it's great. I feel great, actually. So that's
Perfect.
my
Yeah.
daily routine, actually.
Yeah, sounds like you're in a pretty
Boring.
solid space right now. But
Yes.
you say it's boring, but you just said you're happy about it, and you kind of lit up when you're talking about what makes you excited about it, talking
That's
with
absolutely
students, talking about the life part. Yeah,
boring is, boring for me. I use this word as it's luxury, actually. When we go on holidays, or you play a lick and it's getting boring. It's always when I tell my young students they play the lick one time and stop. What's next? I tell them, so now I play it 1,300 times. What? I said, okay, let's do it 100 times. I count. And okay. And then you got them. But it's like, I always explain them, do it till it's getting boring. And so boring is like, it's not negative. I think it's something positive too,
yeah.
It's
Kind of like tying your shoes. You master
Yeah.
it. You don't have to think about it anymore. You can think about other things.
Exactly. Yeah.
In fact, Ryan, you and I talk about that a lot, where you get to a point where you can play, and as guitar players, you can just kind of play and improvise, and that's when you do some of your best thinking. You're not really thinking about what you're playing at all. Your mind is drifting away from somewhere else. It's a therapeutic thing, healing, as you say, Alex. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's really neat. So I'm really curious to hear, so that your quote boring daily life is seems very steady. Very
Yeah.
maybe you might go on tours every now and then, or you might have some studio sessions, which obviously that's always different. But
Hmm.
kind of the core of it is your teaching and being able to kind of pass on and help others
Yeah.
who want to get into the space come up and everything. So since that's pretty steady, we know lately we've been hearing more things about quote the future of music. AI
Hmm.
music, all these different things that are coming out, and everybody says that it's going to kill off the producer jobs. We actually just did another episode talking about how Congress is getting involved in the U.S., talking about regulation, about basically stealing people's identities and their likeness to be able to put out music in their name, diminishing their brand and things like that. What's your overall take on that whole trend?
So my take on that, is trust, because I'm very positive always, like, and
Mhm.
I think there's gonna be at least it's gonna be half like new opportunities, to break maybe through this musicians thought that everything was done already. Maybe this is what I think
Mm.
about it.
Mm.
Use it for maybe out of the stuff we made already, to find new ways of whatever. And also, if I think about the music industry, I mean, the musicians is one thing, being a musician and living the dream as a drummer or a musician, playing for people and getting back a feedback and stuff. This is happens all the time. You can go in your cellar in front of 3 people, you have this. So we don't need the music industry, actually. You can do
Hmm.
something else for getting your bills paid or whatever. And the music industry was always, you had the record companies, they chose the bands. They had a kind of certain power. You had also the magazines. I have some stories about the German drum magazines, but I won't tell now. But getting interviews as a musician, and it's also this kind of power. And now they're leaving the field, and you get the connection directly to the user and to the the fan,
Mm-hmm.
and which is actually something good. So in the last years, it was not kind of going into more negative. I don't want to see that, They're always like, maybe it's always the same actually altogether, could be. So I don't know about all the dangerous stuff coming up. Let's see. But I have hope and I have trust, and it's all about, it's all about us, the people actually.
Yeah.
And switch off all this stuff, and you go in the forest and take your instrument in the forest, and you play for the animals, and you're three people having fun.
Yeah.
So there, you're back there where it all started.
So you mentioned,
I'm not afraid,
Yeah, well, you mentioned that being afraid, and I think when this topic comes up, a lot of people who are hanging on to the way things were are afraid. They're afraid of things going away. Things are changing, right? But you mentioned you're very optimistic. So, what are some of those opportunities that you see? What are those opening in the clouds that you see that are possible now that maybe weren't possible before?
I mean, the communication to the people, like the interview we do now, telling the people, hey, come on, everything's going to be cool. Or let's work on it at least, At least we can talk about this again in 1 year or stuff. And we are still there. The people are there. And it's all about happiness and stuff. But I would be always optimistic because we can choose normally, And I think we have to find the ways to choose the right ways to go. And we have to learn maybe more in the future for all the technology stuff. Me too. I don't want to have the technology take too much of my time, actually, because I know it's a full-time job. And that's what I care of, that I still go here to my instrument and I do I play and I get my feedback of life. And so to say, I mean, you have to find actually maybe a balance, but I don't know so much about this technology things. And, I don't want to be like, I know it's going to be interesting and maybe kind of dangerous, but, danger can be also exciting. I don't know, you have to always to find the positive excitement and electrifying things in life to have fun, Maybe it's going to be great for everyone, you don't know. So always to think it's going to be horrible doesn't help,
Yeah. I think one of my favorite quotes actually comes from a business guy, Sean Stevenson, who passed away a few years ago. And one of the quotes that sticks with me every day of my life is happiness is a choice that you make every day. That's it.
Yeah.
So he always spoke about every time you wake up, you have a key choice. You could either be happy or the opposite. So it's really your fault. Like you got to be focused on that to live a good life. But yeah, I mean, that all makes sense. And I like this because I don't think we've had a conversation about that distinction, John, with anybody of knowing it's happening, but just kind of like knowing it's there, being somewhat acutely aware of what's happening, what's going on, but remembering to just bring it back to focus on what you do, what you love, what you're passionate about, and just focusing on that and not letting all of this noise over here about the AI, the tech, the music, and all of that really cloudy up what you're already doing and enjoying and love to do. It's a really, really good piece of feedback for sure that we haven't heard yet here.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of another quote. I don't know who originally said it, but I'll never forget it. It's always face the sun and the shadows fall behind you. And I think that you're a living example of that, Alex, and I really appreciate it. But I think we're kind of witnessing how you're actually seeing the world, especially now, that we're talking about this new technology and things like that. So I'm really curious to hear, knowing that you have a let's just call it a pace of life right now that you seem to be very happy with. Do you see opportunities such as like maybe touring or going into the studio or something that you're doing right now? Do you see that changing or some of those opportunities maybe going away?
For sure changing, but for the better. I really have to, at the moment, the editing, when we always discuss if you talk about music nowadays, it's like you have always this super clinic, super perfect stuff. I always tell my students perfection is boring. Boring in the bad sense, actually,
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, not bad, not negative. I try to avoid those words anyway. It's not electrifying, okay? You don't have the plus minus working together, getting the electricity. So you have it clean, like always one thing,
It doesn't have
monotone.
life in it.
And exactly. And even when it's like sloppy played, sloppy is also, it can be something, interesting because it creates a feeling for somebody, and all that kind of stuff is important, and those things get always more and more important when we have this technology going up, because those are the things that technology maybe can do, but it's not the same. You have to really see it. It's not the same. They can fake you, but it's fake. It's always gonna be fake. And that's my optimistic view on it. Maybe I'm naive, but I like to be naive. Why not? I'm more happy. So go that way, and you're gonna find peace. I mean,
Love it.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's
But
actually
yeah.
no, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to answer your last part of the question, which was if it goes away. I don't think so, because of that
Yeah.
reasons. And you're gonna be always a live performer, or the people now, you can see it on the shows. Actually, they support the bands. I talk to a lot of smaller bands, and the people go there and they buy the shirts because they are so happy after the pandemic to see live music again, and to see, even when you do a mistake, they're smiling, when they,
Yeah.
hear it. But it's something special. And it's not about a mistake, which is negative. It's something special, which is something positive, because it
Yeah.
creates feeling, and I could go on, but that's the thing, what's very important.
Yeah, and that's how you know the musicians in the crowd as well. The
Yes.
ones that are like, meh, that accent was off, Alex.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, but no, but you have to show them too. Like you give him those musicians, the police, we called it, who doesn't pay the tickets normally. I always no. I mean, we are playing for. This is why I really like to play simple music. Because I want to have also drum solo. I made it for the crowd, and I understood that later in my life. The best part of my drum solo was when I stopped playing drums and I just make the crowd clapping. They made it. I could leave the stage, and that was my drum solo. That was the best part when I was not playing. That tells everything. And if you take them all, with you, even musicians, it's always a way. You don't have to play technically like a monster. It's not about just the technique. You can play very slow and take them with you. Give them power or whatever. That's the thing.
Yeah, I think this actually highlights kind of what you were saying, and I'll say it directly now, which is Ryan and I actually had a conversation on another episode about how digital music, if you remember in the beginning when we had this whole conversation around analog music versus digital was becoming a thing. It sounded really sterile and computerized, But if you think about it logistically and logically, if a computer is making it, it's always calculated. Even if there are mistakes, the mistakes are calculated, and we as humans, we can somehow feel
true.
that. We can tell that, and I think that you mentioning that even the crowd, some of the fans are happy and smiling when you make mistakes, or when somebody on stage makes mistakes. I think that kind of points towards people also liking, like, let's say, video content that's just somebody in their bedroom or in their kitchen eating an apple or something like that, because it's real. And it almost seems like, and this was my point, it almost seems like the rise of all this fake stuff is actually amplifying the real stuff. It's just making
That's
more
true.
contrast, so people are being gravitating more toward the real thing. That's really cool.
Exactly what I think. And also about one thing about doing a mistake, it's more actually, when I think about it, the reaction you do afterwards. So if you play some interesting note, let's say, Tico Torres once said, do it twice, then it's It's cool, but it's you know, it's the reaction after what you do with it. You know, if you're smiling to your bandmates and laughing about it, it's awesome. You know,
Yeah.
it's awesome. And if you're like getting angry, maybe not so much. You know,
yeah.
so it's
And
like you're an actor. You know, also, you know, a real one maybe. You know, you're yourself and true. And when you are happy, it's all about happiness. You give it to the people, you get it back, and that's so simple as that. It's
yeah.
great.
Yeah, and we had Rodham Sivan over here on our podcast at one point, so he'll love me for the joke. If it's a mistake, just call it jazz, and you'll be fine. It's okay. It's no big deal. No big deal at all. But yeah, I think that,
Right.
you know, John, you and I have been on these talks a while and have had a lot of conversations, and I feel like we kind of lean toward the same. We had a conversation outside of the one you just mentioned, which is all about the difference between computerized everything and human beings. And the two key things that stood out to me and still are in my brain are that we actually write our music and play our music with emotion, which is something that can't be dialed in. They could try, but ultimately it'll never be authentic. And then also the other side of the equation is that we write things and play things based on our personal experience.
Also true.
So
It's a big
whenever we're playing, it's through our personal emotion based on our personal experience and what we've been through. All things that can't be properly taught. Sure, we could feed in some data to be like, act like you're this person for the past 40 years and write a song, but it's still fake. It's not authentic. So people can't connect enough to that, because even if it's their life story that's being sung in a song, they're like, but nobody's been through it. It's a computer. Like I need somebody that's been through it singing to me, not just a computer. So I think that we're going to lean toward that differentiation a lot. So I agree.
That's absolutely right. And I also always think about, you know, it's when you play music, sometimes you have the feeling it comes from somewhere. You know, it sounds very esoteric, but like Eddie
But
Van
it's
Halen,
true.
it's like Eddie Van Halen said, like, how you do this and that in interviews. He said, like, he has no idea. It's coming from somewhere, and it's something. That's what I always try to get my students, you know, to the point. I show them the way, and you know, to learn, to be open, and all that kind of stuff, to have the same feeling, and that's something I need. How do you want to fake this with computer technology? I don't know. And there's always going to be people like Ryan, like you said. I mean, there's always going to be a part of people who doesn't care so much about what's running on the radio. It can be, you know, whatever. And they don't care. And then you have this kind of music, which is like interesting in that category. But it's about, you know, it's like if you talk about love, you know, it's the same thing, you know. Basta. You cannot even explain it, right? I cannot do it. I can just tell. I can, you know, I feel it. I have no idea what's happening, and this thing, you don't have any idea about it. That's the point. That's the point. It's real and true.
I think about the music thing. The best, I guess, analogy that I've ever heard about this is that we are basically radios, and what we are doing when we're playing, the better musician you get, and I'll explain what that means in a moment, you are just tuning in and you're receiving the signal. We don't know where it's coming from, and that brings up a great point. Well, I'll say that in a second, but we are receiving the signal, and the signal gets clearer and clearer the more we master our instrument, because the music or the signal can flow through our hands or our voice or whatever it is, right? That's what's happening. And I think all of us as musicians, we're all nodding our head, because we know that to be true, even if we can't explain it. It just, that's how we don't know where it's coming from, but that's what's happening. And it's really interesting. I've never thought about this until you just mentioned that, which is a computer can receive nothing but input. So that life signal, whatever that is, it can't possibly recreate that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Well said.
And you don't have to explain everything all the time. You know, that's something we want to. Maybe we don't want. You know, if we know more about life we skip that, because I don't need to explain why this food, for example, or this kind of beer tastes that, blah blah blah. You just enjoy, and if you think too much, you don't have space enough to enjoy and feel 100%.
Yeah.
CPU overloaded. So
And I think that's what it's
I
about.
keep the space. Yeah, I keep the space. Like you said, when you play an instrument in a studio or whatever, and you have to play a solo or a drum part, and you just close your eyes and you feel it.
Yep.
And that's it.
I think that's one of the reasons why, maybe it's the reason why we all play and want to keep playing and want to keep chasing that. It's a feeling or a place that you get to where the signal is coming in clearly, and you're just in that what our students call the ultimate happy place. They're referring
Yes.
to a guitar, but it's for any instrument. It's for singing.
think
It's for
so.
any music, right? And it's that one moment. It's an infinite moment, and it's 0 seconds. You know what I mean? It's just one. There's no time, there's no space. It's just euphoria, really. And I actually remember a quick story. Before I ever started teaching, I remember being able to. I was like working a crappy job, medical. I was like inputting medical records, so like I was on a computer all day, just typing in stuff. And I would go home, and I was not in a great place at that time, but I had some instruments and some drums and amps and things like that in a basement. So I remember walking down there, and I would just play some chords, turn on a loop pedal, and just improvise for a few minutes. And sometimes I would even come to tears because it was just so great, so amazing, just feels so fantastic. And I remember several times, turning off the amp, having that electric buzzing feeling afterwards, and walking up the stairs and turning off the light and just thinking, if only everybody else can feel like this. If only I could somehow just give them this experience, right? And that's one of the reasons why I started teaching and why we still do what we still do. But Alex, this has been amazing because we've really gotten to know you on a deeper level and kind of how you're seeing things, what your philosophy is, and it's really inspiring, to be honest. So I would love to hear, based on what you're doing now and what your outlook is. What do you see happening for you and the music industry? Let's say 3 years, 5 years from now. How is the music industry going to change, and where do you think you're going to fit into that?
That's a good question. I'm not the guy who is looking too much into the future, because the thing is, you have to plan too much. And actually, I have a clear structure in my life, but I don't plan too much. I'm the guy who walks around in the trees and stuff. My cars, they fall apart, and stuff like this. So this is like having a real life. You're always getting, your car tells you, this is not an electronic highlight, and that's kind of thing, for the future. But I can guess, maybe. Actually, I did not think about it till now. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting in the sense of this communication technology, like we do now, is much better than a few years ago. And I think this is a big chance for experience, getting people connected. I think this is very important, and focusing on the real things, the truth, and everything we were talking about. We can have this better, maybe, in the sense of the electronic, ways they can help us connect. For example, for a lesson with other people, on the other half of the planet or something, and talking like we do, feeling what we are talking about, and getting them the information in a true sense, and that kind of stuff. I think this is a very important thing I want to focus on, and for the rest, I know that the sound is getting better and better in the studios. This is also a super high hope for me, because, microphones getting better. You don't use that much trigger anymore because the microphones, and the playing has to be good, of course. But those are a lot of super positive things what make me very optimistic. And I don't think about my career or something. Never, actually. I mean, let's see who calls me. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
happy. I'm happy. I always had, since almost 30 years I'm teaching. And I always had both things, like touring, studio jobs, and my lessons. So I don't know. It's working out well. I love my students. They like to come, and you know. So I don't know
Amazing.
what you think about the future, but maybe you can tell
Yeah.
me more.
It's why we have an entire podcast. We're figuring it out. We're trying
Yep.
real hard here.
I have to think about it, but I did not yet, and I'm not the guy really to focus too much, on futuristic ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
that's, I mean, that's a lesson in and of itself. Like, you don't even realize because it's just what you do in life at this point. I feel like so many people, just because we see it a lot and I see it all the time,
if
you see people just like missing the opportunity of like that
getting
moment.
accidents,
Yeah.
what we said in the beginning, Lemmy, everything
Yeah.
happens by accident. How do you want to plan an accident? I mean, sounds stupid, right? So that's kind of thing. And I was always the guy. I was talking to Luca to really a lot of, about, he was very into the technology. He's a nerd, and future, everything, what's gonna happen, and he always told me about it. And I told him, I don't want to know. I if I could know when I'm gonna die, which the moment, if I could know the year now, I would not want to know.
Sure.
He would
Yeah.
maybe, but I don't want to know, because otherwise I would not do it, would not work anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would say,
Well,
I die anyway.
well,
It's the truth, but you know what I
he's
mean. It's like,
Luca's a composer. Okay, we're weird. All right, just give it up. Like, you want to see some of the weirdest people on campus? Go to where I got my degree, music theory composition. All right, we are a group. Let me tell you. But yeah, even for him, right? For those of you that don't know, Luca Turilli, incredible composer as well as guitarist, and by accident guitarist, right?
great human being. Yeah, he
Yeah.
is a pianist, actually, even more
Yep.
now. Plays
Yeah,
piano
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot.
He's amazing,
Super,
amazing individual,
super
incredible
gifted.
guy. And
Absolutely.
I remember chatting with him probably 4 or 5 years ago, and asking about his setup. So we're talking about setting up his template so he could start composing, and we're talking full orchestra and everything. And he was like, it's going to be a minute to load up. And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, it takes me about 4.5 hours to load my template in the DAW right now that I use to compose in. So, I think about him in this situation now. It's probably at least a half hour now. It's definitely excelled, and it will only get better from there. And his ability to be able to just like snap into the creative side rather than waiting on technology should be easier as well. But yeah, I mean, if those of you listening can't tell, one of the reasons I really enjoy my times with Alex is really that kind of overall philosophy. It comes out in your teaching as well. I mean, with your literal lessons, half and half. It's like half technique, but also I know you're heavily focused on what's happening outside of the drums right now, what's happening mentally,
Absolutely.
and helping people understand that. So it's a wonderful thing. So John, I'll go to you for any final thoughts or questions, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah. So actually, first, I just want to say thanks, Alex, for being on here, for taking the time, because uh, I'm really grateful that we get to have this conversation. I don't take it for granted. I'm actually going to be rewatching this myself and writing down some of the. You said several quotes that I think are worth writing down and being on a T-shirt. I'm not going to make the T-shirts, but I will write it down and remember it. And
Send me over.
yeah,
But thank you very much. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely, man. But I think my biggest takeaway, and this may be a little bit slightly tangential to our conversation because we didn't directly talk about this, but kind of my biggest takeaway from this is, or there, at least the perception that I got is that how we talked about this conversation and how we talked about some of the other conversations on other episodes really illustrate different people's personality types. And there are different personality types, and based on how you're wired, so to speak, the way that your brain works, is how you maybe organize your closet or organize your calendar, or don't organize at all, like me. Or my wife just looked at me, and or how you go about being creative, how you go about your day, how do you make decisions, how do you do different things. And I think for some people like Luca, for example, and I'm this way as well, I tend to not live in the future, but sometimes I venture into the future and I look, what's coming, what are the trends. That's one of the reasons why we're talking about this. Why Ryan and I host this podcast is because this is what we think about a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
that's part of it. But other people, there are different ways of thinking. There are different ways of living. And you, Alex, I mentioned it's really inspiring to me to want to just be more. And it in that, if you're like that, I can see why for you being at the right place at the right time can work as a vehicle for you to perpetuate your lifestyle, if that makes sense. That's your thing. That's how that works.
Yes.
So again, we didn't directly talk about that, but that's really kind of my biggest takeaway from today's conversation.
Yeah.
What do you think,
It's on
Ryan?
point, actually.
Yeah. I think it's the same, man. How do I explain it? We ever go? It's massages, right? Like a deep tissue massage, or like a really good spa day, right? Where you're treating the wife because you got to make her happy. You got to make sure she's very happy. It's a requirement, everybody. But going out and doing something like that. But then you get out for the day, right? After going through something so relaxing, right? And being in that, like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. It's how I feel every time I talk to Alex, just with like
Same.
the clarity of brain space. And yeah, I mean, everything's so fast, I think, is the other thing. And just talking to you, I'm like, man, I do too much. Like, I cram too much in the brain to where I probably give 1% of my life to just being present and really enjoying that moment. So, outside of the fact that you are an incredible musician and you are here talking about future of music stuff, just a testament to you being an incredible human being and a wonderful personality. Which, by the way, people can always follow and connect with you. You're always doing like videos on tutorials, and I know that you're getting into like short form stuff. So feel free to dig in. We'll post all of them in the show notes. You've got a Facebook, a YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. So we'll make sure they're all there, and people can click those as well. But yeah, John, I know you have one. You're putting up a finger to me. That two fingers to me.
Two fingers.
Go
that
ahead.
means I have two more
Go
quick
ahead.
things. Two more quick things. So refreshing. You said that. Refreshing is the word I was trying to think of. Every time we speak, Alex, it's very refreshing. And actually, there's a quote I heard maybe a couple of months ago that really, to me, without getting too weird, kind of embodies you and your philosophy and your lifestyle. And it is, flow like a great river by being still like a mountain. And that really that's you to me. It's you're in flow, you're in your zone, you're happy, you're doing the thing, the signal is coming through, and you're just being there. You're not trying. I love that.
Thank you very much. My last words would be like, I always try to explain or show my students, if when they say you are an awesome drummer or something, I always explain to them, I am, maybe because I don't do so much. I leave it to other places. I show them the drumstick is everything. The pedal is doing everything for me, and that's the reason why I sound good. It's not me, it's the instrument and the material and everything which is in the room. So that's why how I feel. And when I play a show and the band clicks, it's the most happy. It's a wonderful place on earth, and it's just, I can get tears in my eyes when I'm on stage and have this feeling, actually. And I can just, tell everybody, follow, go that way. It's super easy. Keep it simple, be true,
Nice.
Fantastic.
Well done. Well, I think that's like our best closing from a guest that we've had yet.
yeah.
I'm sorry, other guest. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's the
I
throne
have
is
to
taken.
check out the others.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you can.
Thanks, really.
They can all come back and try again if they want to. Feel free. But
That's cool.
but yeah, man, it's been again, great time chatting with you today. Again, feel free to check out everything we have in the show notes, and just the personal note of, it's so crazy for me coming full circle, where, some of the things that inspired me to do music It's just like right here. It's you, and it's not only the fact that I know you and I've met you, but I've met a lot of musicians that I looked up to, man, and it's about a 50-50 split. Some of them really wish I hadn't met, really wish I hadn't ruined that perception of this person being incredible. You are definitely not on that side, man. I'm honored and blessed to know you. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful thing.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes it for the episode, y'all. So make sure to check out the next one as well, because we're not stopping. We're just going to roll right through and continue all of these. So make sure you follow and all the fun things. Other than that, check out all of Alex's stuff. We appreciate you so much, Alex, and we appreciate you all listening to the Future of Music podcast.